Hi everybody, it's Luke from Foot Tech. Got a question for you today. We'd love to get your thoughts on this as well, so please, after you've listened to this and watched this video, please do comment with some of your thoughts on this. Question is, should we stop the two-touch rule in children's football training? So, bit of context here. A few weeks ago we did a video on coaching mixed abilities, and in preparation for that I was going back and forth with Nick, who's the Foot Tech co-owner, around some ideas and sharing some thoughts and things that have worked well for us in the past and what we're doing now with mixed abilities. And one of my ideas was playing two-touch, something I've used quite a lot in the past. I'd maybe get the higher ability kids to only play two-touch for a certain amount of time, which gave them a different challenge, but also helped the lesser ability players because, you know, they can have as many touches as they want. It was, from my point of view, quite a good idea, and as I say, something I've used quite a lot in the past. But Nick's question back to me was, but is it a good thing? Because have we just removed a massive layer of decision making for that child playing two-touch? Have we now taken that whole decision-making process away by saying to them, you must play two-touch? So we've removed it for them. We've removed that decision-making element, which is a massive part of football development, certainly for children. We've removed it completely because we've taken the decision. We've made that decision for them. You can only play two-touch now. And it was something I'd never really thought about. And that's the beauty of football coaching. You know, you're always learning. You're always thinking about new things. So when I thought about it more and Nick and I had a bit more back and forth, it sort of became clear that, yeah, actually, is it a good thing? It looks great on the eye when you can see kids knocking it about one and two touch and what have you, but that's when it makes sense to do that. It's not about making the decision for the child, because if we do that, if we say you must only have two touches now, it's going to create some bad habits and then have a negative transfer to the game, really. You know, Nick was saying, well, why would you take two touches if one is the best option? And then you might argue, well, okay, well, it's one or two touches. So it's like, okay, well, what if 7 touches was better? What if 4 touches was better? What if a child was, you know, pressed by 2 or 3 defenders and they had no option but to dribble, and so they're going to naturally need to take more than 2 touches perhaps. So it was all these things that I started thinking about. And then looking back at my own sessions, when I have put a 2-touch rule in there, you've got kids that will maybe have a bad touch, so they'll need the second touch to correct it, and then all of a sudden now they've got to stop, so they just put the hands up and stop, because they're not, the rule is they can't touch the ball more than twice. So you start thinking about these things in context, and you're like, yeah, actually, it's not probably going to transfer very well to a game, that, because if a child made an error with their first touch in the game and needed a second touch to correct it, they're not just then going to stop and put their hands up because it's a match. They need to carry on playing. So it's something that hopefully everybody listening and watching today can have a think about. Have you done this in your sessions? Is two-touch something that you implement quite a lot? And as I say, we'd love to get your thoughts and feedback on this, because it's got us thinking very different. And certainly myself, it's probably something I'm not going to do very often now, and I'll come on to what I am going to start doing. But I think the idea behind it is, what can we do as coaches? If you're a manager of a grassroots football team and you're wanting to work on passing and you want them to speed up the passing with 1 and 2 touches and so forth, then the 2-touch rule seems like a good idea. It seems what you should do, and as I say, certainly something I used to do. But what can we do as coaches to get the same learning, to do sessions on passing and 1 and 2 touch passing, but without putting these rules into play, which removes the decision making for the children? So how can we get the best of both worlds? Well, you can reduce the space. So instead of having a big old playing area where, you know, there's lots of space to run into, lots of space to dribble and so forth, reduce the space as much as you can, as much as is practical, really, because then you reduce the time on the ball that the child has. So naturally then they're going to have to think about passing quickly, taking a touch and getting it away quickly. So then all of a sudden they start to naturally look at 2-touch football, 1-touch football, because they've had to. You forced them into it. Not easy with the younger players, obviously, but there's a lot of consistency needed. You're going to have to do this over a number of weeks. But then it's down to you as the coach to be coaching within that. So If a child, maybe gets caught on the ball, then okay, they're going to learn from that. By the way, they're going to learn from that over a number of weeks, and it should start to cement in their minds that okay, yeah, I need to do something differently here. But you as a coach can start asking good questions around that. What could you do differently? How could you make it so it's harder for those players that are pressing you to take the ball from you, and hopefully then they're going to start learning, okay, yeah, actually, if I can just do it in one pass as opposed to taking 2, 3, 4, 5 touches, that's going to make it much harder for the defenders, and it means I'm not going to get caught on the ball. So it could be that you're talking about maybe trying to create space for passing opportunities. So could they take a touch one way, which lures the defenders in, but creates space for your teammate on the other side of the area, and then with their second touch they can play across to there. So there's 100 ways, 100 million ways probably that you can look at this, and you could really get into the minute detail of it all, but that's not for today. But hopefully that just gives some people listening to this a bit of a bit of something to think about, because it certainly did for me as somebody that's I've been a big fan of the two-touch rule since I played. I quite enjoyed it. It really tested you. But actually, yeah, for a child learning the game, maybe it's not the best thing, and maybe we should stop using it our sessions and instead think about how we can force the issue is probably the wrong way of describing it, but how can we set up activities where quick passing is needed and is essential? And again, it might be a slower process over a number of weeks until they're getting it, but that's our job as coaches. It's not going to happen overnight. So have a think about that. Drop us some comments. Let us know what you think, but we'd love to get your thoughts on that. Thank you as always for listening, and we'll speak to you again soon.